Joining us now here in our Washington studios for some reaction is Kevin Book. He's managing director at ClearView Energy Partners and is steeped in the oil patch and having watched everything we've seen in the past couple of weeks. It's great to have you with us on set. Thanks for joining us. He just made this post as you were sitting down with me in the studio, so I realized you weren't prepared to talk about it. What should be or will be the reaction in the energy market to this? Well,
molecules are one thing and markets are another. Yeah. So if the cargoes we're talking about are the ones that are mostly headed to Asia, and about 80% of the Hormuz traffic from a crude oil perspective is going to Asia, then you still have to think about the global price implications of a shut strait. And that washes ashore on our coasts, despite where those molecules are going.
The president has said this quite a few times recently. We don't even use the strait, but this is a global market, of course. Could there be a world in which the president, I know he has said he's not interested now, cuts off exports from this country and creates some sort of domestic pricing structure?
Well, I think the news we heard this week is that they're not planning to do that.
Yeah.
When we say exports, let's differentiate.
Would it even be possible?
Well, yeah, it certainly I think could be possible. The powers in IEEPA might not be well suited to setting tariffs on counterparties, but it could certainly be used to block exports, and those things were mentioned actually in the Supreme Court ruling. But to sort of look differentially at products versus crude, I think one of the areas we should be asking is, what does this look like if this goes on for a few more months?
That's right.
Right? So right now, you could say there's no atheists in foxholes. There's no free marketers in a supply shock.
Okay.
And so the administration is saying, no, we're not going to block exports. We're working on the supply side. We're looking at liberalizing these cargoes, these forward-positioned sanctioned ships, and allowing them to go to markets they otherwise might not serve. But at the same time, you know, if we find that the prices keep rising intractably, and it's possible that they could, although today's news, we'll have to process that and see what the market thinks of it.
Sure.
But if you just extrapolate the crude closing price out to April 30th, you get to like 174 per barrel, thereabouts.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, and then you're doing no work. Work into it with a little bit more modeling, you get somewhere between 100 and 174 based on demand elasticities. And so the high end of that range looks really high, essentially doubling the gasoline price at the pump. At that point, you have to ask, would they potentially look at products exports?
Sure, okay.
And they might.
You say there's no atheists in the foxhole. How about in the oil pits? Because traders have had a heck of a time the last couple of weeks getting their heads around this. And there was this initial thought that this will be short-lived. We're seeing through this, was the line by many analysts, and it has really felt differently over the past 24 to 48 hours. The introduction of this idea of ground troops potentially occupying Cargill and the idea of maybe the strait being closed for weeks, if not months more. What are you hearing when it comes to sentiment among traders, and how much darker could this get?
I think there's a lot of interest in trying to figure out the answer to that first question. Is it a short war? It's already on the edge of not a short war, even if you look at it from the perspective of stopping today.
That's right.
And it's not stopping, obviously, today if we're talking about ground troops. So I think we'll see how that discussion plays out. But even if it did stop today, it's not a short crisis at this point.
Right.
We still have that lag time to get facilities that have been shuttered back up. Today, Fadi Birol, the executive director of the IEA, was talking about 6 months for restarts of fields that shut down and facilities that shut down gracefully.
Yeah.
Even if it were weeks instead of months, it would still be weeks. And then the damaged facilities could be much longer.
Okay, so then this supply disruption will be at least weeks or months longer, to your point, even if the conflict ends today.
Yeah, although part of the
Would
mitigation...
the market price beyond that if it saw this war end or a ceasefire in place?
Well, the market looks ahead, and so to the extent that you could say that the strait was reopening, I think you could look at this very differently. But is the strait going to be reopened? And I think listening to the Admiral talking about the process for reopening the strait, that too didn't sound instantaneous to me, Joe.
$3.91 today, the average for a gallon of gas. That's the average, which means a lot of people are paying more than that, and while some are paying less, $4, I'm guessing, is around the corner. Weeks or months more of crude being shut in, or 20% being off the market, would mean what for gasoline?
Yeah, if we get to that 175, 174 number, that's essentially a made-up number. Let's be serious about this. Predicting oil prices is hard in the best of times,
sure enough,
and price discovery is even harder in a war. But if we look at that, we're essentially doubling the pre-war price on a crude oil content basis.
Yeah.
So closing in on a 6-handle.
A 6-handle for gasoline.
On a national average basis.
On a national average. Is there anything that the White House can do beyond releasing barrels from the SPR, which it's already done? We've knocked out the Jones Act. What else could be done on a policy level here in Washington, if anything?
Well, I think that, again, this goes to the will to intervene. And as prices rise, interventions do tend to intensify.
Yeah.
We're already starting to see some price controls, some of them soft price controls around the world. That authority doesn't look obviously vested in the president's powers right now. But on the other hand, there's inherent Article 2 powers that could be attempted in wartime. So I think we have to look and see.